Brilliant, thanks Alan.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. The life and times of me. Yeah, so I thought I'd put this together because there was supposed to be a question and answer, but they said, no, you're on your own and do what you like. So I normally do what I like, and I like what I do. And hopefully you'll be inspired by some of the stuff and you get some ideas. This is what it's all about. It's not about me personally, although there's 59 slides, which it looks like it's about me. It's about what can you get from it in your journey in whatever you're doing in life. So that's what it amounts to. So if you keep that in mind, and then hopefully we'll have some questions. And I'm very interested to know who thinks they can be a millionaire, who wants to be a millionaire. And so that's everybody. And that's and I am proof that you can go from nothing to being a multi-millionaire. So this is probably one a house to live in, and a stable income, and that's what we all want. So and that's what they wanted. But unfortunately, that was 1937. A couple of years later, he was a carpenter and cabinet maker, and he worked on the building site, and he was very happy. And a couple of years later, the government dragged him up into Newcastle somewhere, where they were square bashing for a few weeks, and then off to the killing fields of Burma, which he stayed in for a few years until the war was over, and he came back a different person. He did, although I didn't know him at that time, because I was born on the 18th of June 1950, and you can see I'm already going to be a builder who's got two buckets, and what do they call them? Ambidextrous. So I was ambidextrous even in those days. And I heard my mother say, when you came along, I closed the door. There was no other children we was not going to produce any more children. And I believed it was because I was so good, they would never find another as good as me. Well, my mum and dad had different thoughts. My mum used to say, you're a little sod because you disrupt your brother and sister. And I remember saying, like, quite a regular basis until I was 18, I should have killed you at birth. And I loved my mum, but I obviously pressed the wrong buttons, and I remember I should have killed you at birth, boy. And but she didn't. They decided to send me to an institution when I was 5 until I was 15. And you'll never see a picture of me in this institution because I was hardly ever there. And I call it an institution, but most people call it school. And from the first day to the last day, I could never understand why I was there. And one of the reasons was that I didn't fit in. I didn't see what everybody else saw. And if there's any dyslexics in here today, you can probably read this quite well. And that's what I see when I look at words. And I still see that when I look at words, and it's got a lot better over the time. But I used to say to the teacher, I can't see the board, because I couldn't understand at 5 and 6 how I was to explain, because I thought everybody saw that. And so therefore they gave me some glasses, and then I was called specky eyes and four eyes, and then I still can't see, meaning I could see the bigger letters, but I couldn't see what there was joined up and how other people did it. So then they put me under the blackboard, and And then I was the class clown. And once the teacher has got something in for you, it's an open door for everybody else. You know, once a teacher bullies you, it's an open door for everybody else to bully you. And so I had 10 years of being called stupid, because nobody knew about dyslexic in those days. They just thought he was disruptive and a little sod, and so they used to call you stupid and spastic and everything else in between those two words, and you will never amount to anything. But as you know, I did. So here we are. I was free at last, and that was my mum, my dear mum, who said I should have killed you at birth, and she still said that in that, just when we was at Mablethorpe. So I was free. I felt free for the first time in my life, but I was brainwashed, because I was brainwashed into getting a job. And but I couldn't keep a job there. I had 17 jobs between there and 24 years old. So I used to, you could get a job in the morning in 1965 and leave in the afternoon and get one the following morning. Or if you got fired in the morning, you could get one in the afternoon. It was easy, it was. And I was pretty good at getting jobs. And so it all changed in 1966. Well, this is Marilyn, my first love, okay? And she changed my world, because she was the first person ever not to think I was stupid. And what a difference in my brain that made, it did. Because everything starts from, you know, your thoughts, your brain, and she didn't think I was stupid, so that was the first person. So that was very nice. After a couple of weeks, we fell in love, really, and after 6 weeks, we decided we'd spend the rest of our lives together, and we made goals. So the first time, really, made a goal, and the first goal was to buy a house, the second goal was to get married, and the third goal was to have children. So we had a fourth goal. The first three goals we thought were quite easy, especially about having children. You know, I was all up for that. But the fourth goal was to work together, to spend our lives together, and that proved to be very difficult. And we never thought we would get that goal. So this is the first goal we got in 1968. We bought this house. We tried to get a new house, which was £3,000, but we couldn't, because they said, you don't stand a fucking chance of getting a house. And that's what the guy said to me. It's the first time, you know, when I was 16, I was 16 when I first went to try and get a mortgage, and the first time I heard somebody swear, and they was wearing a suit. I didn't think, you know, it was like, I didn't think anybody swore when they wore a suit. I thought he was a different breed of person. Anyway, so instead of trying to get a mortgage on like a £2,000 house or whatever, we went right down to the bottom, and we bought this house. No electricity, it had gas lamps in, the water tap was outside, and there was a toilet down the yard. So we bought that in 1968. And we paid cash for it. And another goal, 1970, we achieved. We got married because my father had helped me renovate that house, and we moved straight into it. Another goal, the third goal, was to have a baby, and we had that. And I think it was 9 months and 19 days after we got married, and so 19 days I hung around before I decided that that's really what we wanted. So that was look at the house. So we bought this house in 1971 at 650. I spent £400 on it, renovating it. In 1971 we sold it for 2,100, and we went into a semi-detached house just down the road, but it had a garage, and it had a better garden, and that was derelict inside. So we had 9 months in there renovating it, and prices in those days shot up. I got £6,500 for that house, and we moved into the next one because Marilyn wanted to go into a bungalow, and she wanted a place in the rural district. It was like there was fields all around, and she hated it. And I was out working 12 hours a day. It was in the winter. She had the baby. She couldn't drive, and it drove her mad. So back into town we came, and I bought that in an auction, number 26 Alexander Road. I paid £7,500 for it. Oh, by the way, this cost £7,500, and I've got a mortgage on that, a couple of thousand mortgage. And then for some reason, I'd got 2 houses, and I didn't know you went to an auction and you have to pay. I didn't know that. I thought, I didn't understand it. I put my hand up, bought the house, and then they go, want the money. So the next day, Marilyn went down to the bank, and in those days you could speak to the bank manager. We hadn't even got a bank account there, and she came out with £7,500. So we've got 2 houses now, one that the bank owned and one that the mortgage people owned, and we owned a bit. And I thought, I'm a builder now. I really truly thought that, so I took out all the plumbing, all the wiring, I took out chimney stacks, I took out the windows, and half the roof. And then we sold this, and I realised that wasn't a mortgage on it, it was a bridging loan, because they'd sent me a letter saying you've had 3 months, and and if you don't pay within the next 3 months, we're going to put them both up for auction. I didn't know that. So anyway, by the skin of my teeth, and that's been the way we've done things, by the skin of our teeth throughout our life. So luckily, by the skin of our teeth, we sold that for 10 grand or 10.5 grand, and then we had to move. So we couldn't move into that house. We moved into the caravan and in the garden, and then there was a recession. And that house, what I'd paid £7,500 for, and I'd ruined it. It was worth, the agent come round, it was worth £1,500, and that was the plot value, and I'd got a £3,500 mortgage on it. So they call it nowadays negative equity, but in those days they called it shit world. And so we was in the caravan. So no money, I was out working 12 hours a day, and Marilyn was in the building site. We've got no money to renovate it at all. So things couldn't get any worse, he says. Johnny? What's happening?
There you go.
Oh, thank you very much. Things couldn't get any worse. Okay, so I was working for the Ministry of Defence at the time on an underground base, and I fucking hated it. I hated every minute. And I realised whatever you put in your mind and conceive in your mind, you will achieve. I hated every bloody minute of working for the Ministry of Defence. I was waiting for war. So it was so boring, and it was so bad, it was horrible. And we used to listen to the radio on a Friday afternoon, and they would be coming across from somewhere, and it would say the dog ran after the cat, and my boss used to have to write this on a postcard and send it off somewhere to Birmingham, I think it was, to make sure we were still alive and still, we were still there. Anyway, so whatever you put into your mind, it will happen. And it did happen. I got fired. I got fired from that job because I hated it, and we went on to assistance for 3 months. And you can easily fall into the poverty trap, because this was an ideal opportunity to go self-employed and to work together. Our dream could come true. So what we did, we got the yellow pages, because we didn't know what to do. We got the yellow pages and went through from A to Z on what other people did and what we could copy. So there's 2 reasons why there was nothing in there that we could do. 1, we had no money, and 2, we had no skills. And we racked our brains over and over and over again, and then realised when somebody was having an extension done opposite to where we lived, and there was all this glass being unloaded, and I said, some twat's got to clean all that glass. And then I thought, I know one who can clean it. And so therefore no skills required really, and money, no money required. So I had an altercation with the Dole office because I didn't think I could make a living cleaning windows. So I asked the Dole office for another £2 a week because, you know, I was too scared really to go on my own. And this is what a lot of people do. They have a dream, but they're too frightened to go on their own because how are they going to pay for the food and the mortgage, blah, 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 blah. You know, and I was just the same. So they said, if you want £2 more, you'll have to have another baby, because then your points will go up and you get £2. I said, I can't afford to feed the one I've got. So, you know, that is ridiculous. And in a fit of anger, I was 24 and I was really hot-headed in those days, and in a fit of anger, I said, well, you can't look after me, my bosses can't look after me, you know, and I'll look after myself. Thinking, in those days, like, the unions ruled everything in those days, and I thought they'd go, oh, don't go, we'll give you another £2. But they didn't, they just stood there, go, right, do you want to sign yourself off? I said, yeah, I signed myself off, and I stood there and we looked at each other. He said, can I help you? I go, what do I do now? He said, do what you like. Do what you like, you don't have to come here again. Next! And that was it. And I went out thinking, that's told them sods, and then I got on my bike and cried all the way home because I'd let Marilyn down. I'd got a wife and a child and no money for that week. And then I stopped to compose myself down Allen Road, is in Peterborough. We're in Peterborough now? Well, yeah, in Peterborough. And I thought, that's it. I've burned my bridges. I have got to stand up. I've got to be responsible for myself. Because before that, for the 24 years before that, I wasn't responsible for myself. It was everybody else's fault. It was the government's fault. It was the weather. It was everything. It wasn't my fault. But from that minute, it was my fault. That was my life, and I burned my bridges. So I went in to Marilyn, and she said, how did you get on? I said, yes, great. We are now free to do whatever we like in life, and we are self-employed. And that afternoon, I got my first acquisition, which was 37 pence piece of scrim. And I did my first deal. I went to my father and said, and I did my first leveraging deal, and I said to my father, can I borrow your ladder? And he said yes. So I was now in business. I was now in business. So which way do I go? So I was in business, and we made a decision. There were so many roads to go down, and the decision was I'd go and knock on the next door neighbours, because I wasn't going across town looking for windows when there was windows in my street. I knocked on the door. I'm doing it now. I knocked on the door. This is just about burning bridges, but I knocked on the next door neighbour's door. And I said, I'm a window cleaner now. She says, I know who you are. I devalued the whole fucking street. There's piles of rubbish. We was living in a caravan at the back. I destroyed the value of their house, and she slammed the door in my face. She did. So, God give us 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I'd never realised why. So for 24 years, or 25 years, 24 years it was, I had used them in a different way. My mouth got me into so much trouble, and my ears was closed to any advice that anybody told me or anybody who cared to help me. My ears were closed. So a year after being in business, I realised I was listening to people. I was taking notice. I realised mentoring mentors are on your side, even if they tell you the truth, and you don't like it. So the first one is my dad. He wasn't afraid of anything except one thing, going self-employed. He could make caravans. He was a skilled person. He made our own caravan, and we would have been caravan manufacturers now if he'd have just gone self-employed. And he said to me, if he said to me at once, from 4 years old till about 15, he must have told me 1,000,000 times, I should have. But I didn't, because I got a mortgage, I got 3 children, I got this, and this is my commitment, but I should have gone into business. but he didn't. And I swore I would never say I should have. We do from time to time, everybody does from time to time, but I don't very often, and that drove me on. The next person, Albert Johnson, he taught me painting and decorating. This was before I went self-employed as a part-time job, and he was meticulous. He was so meticulous, and I hated it. But he taught me, you know, things that you know years later you don't realise you've learned. Cyril, I met him in 1977. He's been a lifelong mentor for me. He's 96 now, and we still talk regularly. Arthur, he was self-employed. He had a fish and chip shop in Yaxley in Peterborough. He'd got loads of different businesses, and he wasn't afraid of anything. At the age of 13, he told me, Neville, speculate to accumulate. I hadn't got a fucking clue what he was talking about, and I hadn't got the guts to say, Arthur, I don't know what you're talking about. I just kind of giggled, and I should have asked him, what do you mean, Arthur? But I didn't. And that played on my mind for years and years and years. Speculate to accumulate. What the hell is he talking about, right? But I needed to know, because I wanted to be like him. He could go and buy a new car if he wanted, at any time. He could do anything he liked. And it took me years. Ali, he said to me, Neville, if I wasn't a world champion boxer, I could do anything and be world champion. If I was a garbage collector, I could collect more garbage cans than anybody in the world. I'd be the world champion garbage collector. And among other things, you know, what a man. And now this guy, Zig, he's been in my life for the first 30 years from 1980. I listened to him every single day. He taught me how to sell. Right, from window cleaning to property maintenance, every day change. I wasn't a window cleaner for very long, a few weeks, and then it was gutters, then it was drains, then it was fences, and then it was building. And within 3 years, we've got 6 people working with us, and we were building extensions, and then we went into retail. Only because Marilyn wanted to come off the building site and be in an office, because we'd grown that much. And then she said, we bought a terrace house, 2 up, 2 down, and she said, well, it's far too big for an office. I only need 1 desk. What I'll do, I should sell something, because in the terrace of houses, must have been about 50 terraced houses. They're in Bourse Boulevard in Peterborough now, and I think it sells fried chicken now, something like that. But it was just going from houses to shops to offices, and that gave us an idea to put a shop front on and sell something. And what have we got saved up by 1977? £300, and we bought second-hand prams, and we started a second-hand pram shop. Knew nothing about Rainbow Warehouse. Yeah, first year was a disaster. We made no money. Marilyn had worked 50 hours a week. I'd worked on a Saturday there, and we're just about to sell it. And one of the reps came in on Friday. I said, won't see you again, Carl. We're selling it. Why? And I said, because we made no money. I said, we're in the wrong position. We was on the main street coming in and out of town, and we was in the wrong position. He dragged me. He was about 30 stone, I was 9 stone. He hit me up. We was eating fish and chips in the back at the time. He put his fish and chips down, and he pulled me up, and he dragged me through the shop, and he took me out, and he dragged me around like a rag doll, and he said, Neville, look, this is the main street, and you're saying you're in the wrong position. It's you that's wrong. And he was so excited about, he'd seen us work so hard for the last year, and he was more passionate about my business than I was about my business. And that taught me passion. And I walked in, and from that minute I said to Marilyn, we're not selling. Well, she didn't want to sell anyway, it was her shop. But we wasn't making any money. And she believed me, and she said, that's fine. I didn't want to sell. And she believed that tomorrow I could make it better than yesterday, or we could make a profit. So we did. There was a lot of things we did. It's in my book, and we did. And within 2 years then, it was bursting at the seam. You see Black Friday, well, there was people queued up down the street to try and get in, because it was, and there was 14 steps, I think, going up from bottom to top. There was about 10 people on one step going up and about 10 people on the other step coming down. This was a domestic staircase. Upstairs, I'd knocked the wall out, so it was just two rooms then, and the ceiling was bowing, and the electric light looked like it was going to pop out of its holding, and I thought, this is time to move. So we sold that. First business we sold as a going concern, and we went into a new area where there was about 30 shops, and that was 5 times the size, so we started another business, but we sold the first one. That was our first celebration with Kiddie Care, because we had to change the name, because the first one was Rainbow Warehouse, and we didn't know what we was going to sell really, but we carried on with the pram, so we called it the nearest thing to Mother Care, because we admired Mother Care. They had 400 shops, and we wanted to be like them. I don't know why we're smiling, because again, the first year in there, it was a building site, and we had hardly any customers, and we made no money the first year. But it all went up from there. In 1981, the second baby was born. Marilyn made the rules in the shop, and you couldn't have more than 3 Saturdays off, because Saturdays was the main day for trading, and we needed everybody on the shop floor on a Saturday. So Marilyn made the rules. Marilyn must keep with the rules, so she booked herself in on a Wednesday to have the baby, so she was back at work on the Saturday with the baby and the dog under the desk. So now, we worked our socks off. We had, and then by this time, a house come on the market, which is the biggest and the best and the dearest in Stamford, Lincolnshire. And we went to have a look at it, because in all this time we'd been moving. Every few months we'd move house. And of course you'd gain money, and it was tax-free as well. So we'd been moving, we'd been building. We was renovating properties, and we'd accumulated a few, and it wasn't paying the rent. And so we'd got properties that we were leasing out to the American Air Force. And in those days, American Air Force didn't pay the rent. It was the tenant that paid the rent, and they wasn't paying the rents. So we thought, well, why not sell those and have one for ourselves? And that house there, the people went bankrupt building it. In 1978, they put a swimming pool in that cost, I think, £78,000, where you could buy a 4-bedroom house with 2 garages, detached for £14,000. And they spent so much money on there, and when we went in, it got first fix. Anyway, we bought it from the bank, we did. And we lived in there for 26 years. Do I hang, Johnny? Do I hang? Oh, right. The kids started earning money at the age of 10. This is Elaine, first one, and she was about 11 then, and then Joe was in the pram, and there was earning money from the age of 10. And they left school a bit later. So embrace unexpected opportunities, because they are everywhere, and you don't know what day an opportunity will come. Hopefully, when you go away today, I'll have inspired you, and you'll find an opportunity or two because of what you see. We was looking for a warehouse. Because the shed was going well, we needed more stock, we needed a warehouse, and this was advertised. It was advertised as a warehouse, opportunity for a warehouse in a village. So we thought it was in the middle of a field, and it was a shed, and it was 100,000. And when we come up to it, it was a co-op, and they didn't advertise it because they didn't want the people in the co-op who worked there to know they were selling it. And we drew up to it. It was snowing, there was about a foot of snow on the ground, and there was a school opposite. You know, what could be better? hundreds of kids coming out across the road, and we looked at each other and we said, this is not a warehouse, this is our next shop. Never intended to have another shop, but we bought it. Now we had 2 shops. Now, and going back to the property, because we were still building, and by 1984, we'd bought and sold, we'd flipped, we'd renovated about 100 old properties, and this was the first one. We built 6 shops and 2 houses, and that was the first that we could keep. So from 1974 to 1984, we'd been flipping everything, and then we kept that. I've still got those today. 30 years later, they produce, it cost us 72,000. It did, and I think they produce about that every year. You know, so there's a lot, and the properties are obviously worth a lot more than 72,000 now. So. Right, oh no, I've got to go back. Are you doing this, Johnny, or am I? Oh, I'm doing it. Right, take the T out of can't. Right, okay. So, if anybody says they can't, just blank that T out. Because you can describe a can, you know, there's metal ones and tin ones and brass ones and round ones and square ones, and you describe a can in 100 ways, but you can't describe a can't. So if you can't describe something, then take it away and never use that word again. So we opened a 3rd shop, and this is Elaine, she's 13, and this is her friend Rachel, she's 13. They went to the same school, but they didn't go when we opened the shop because they wanted to do it. At 13, they opened a shop. They put all the fixtures and fittings in. They did everything in there for 2 weeks, and then they opened the shop, and then the school found out that it wasn't there anymore. So they dragged them back to school. They spent a few weeks there until summer holidays, and there was 13. And then she didn't go back. And from 13, she worked with us. Millionaires at Last, 1986. Look at I had a perm in those days. I had hair, I had more hair, yeah. So that was in Italy. So we started travelling the world, and we was millionaires at last. And what an achievement. And when I say millionaires, we haven't got any money. You know, there's probably a bit of loose change in the pocket, and that included the gas in the trucks and things like that, and all the tools and everything else, and the stock and everything. So we had £1 million in assets, we did. But what a great feeling that was. Drove us on. 87. Oh, this, my dad and mum wanted nice photos of us, and it was the first time I wore a penguin suit, and I felt really, really out of place because I should have been in my overalls, but it was nice for my mum and dad. And people used to say, you've got Midas touch. They used to come up and touch me and go, yeah, because it was like everything that I touched turned to gold. It was one of those things, because whatever, and I was being driven by customers wanting. So if you fulfill the need of a customer and you make them feel happy, then it trickles back to you, and money comes as a byproduct. But other people around saw this happening. They didn't know why it was happening. They didn't understand about the customer satisfaction, and they just thought that anything we did turned to gold. People would come and touch me. It's like, no, it's not me. It's what we're doing. But they never took any notice. Right, have I bought the business today? Have I sold it, or have I bought it? This is something that you need to ask yourself every single day. Every single day of your life you need to ask. So every day when I was going home, that's just one of our kiddie care warehouses. We have lots of them in here. Every day when I was going home on my own, driving the car, well, Marion probably would be there sometimes, but I was still a builder. I was still going home in the truck, you know, and it was like, have I sold the business today, or have I bought it? And if you want to know what that means, it means if you go into your business at 7 o'clock in the morning and you come out of it at 7 o'clock at night and it's not changed at all, then you've bought it. And do you want to buy your own business? Because you're buying it, because you've not improved it. Because if you've not improved it, it's going down, and somebody else is taking your business away from you, and you don't even know who they are until you go bankrupt. Or have I sold the business today? And what that means is, have I improved it from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night? Have I improved it? Have I improved it physically? Have I improved it for the customers? Have I improved it mentally for myself? Whatever an improvement is, have I made that business more profitable, more wantable from somebody else's point of view? Or would they pay me more money than I think it's worth? And if I've improved it, then I've sold the business. I should sell that every day. Right, conflicts part of a growing business. Well, we had loads and loads of conflicts, not with suppliers, because they was on our side, not with competitors, because we hadn't got any competitors, because we didn't want to think we have competitors, although in a marketplace there's always people selling the same stuff. So we concentrated on our self-improvement. And in self-improvement, the shops got bigger. This was in the middle, this was the old co-op, this was in the middle of a conservation area, in the middle of a village. And we wanted to improve it. We wanted to knock it down and build something really nice, traditional building. And they said no, so I bloody painted it. I painted the Noah's Ark, and I'll put the flags up, and I'll put flags down the side, skull and crossbones and all that kind of stuff. They didn't like it. So we put the application in over and over again, and I got so fed up that this time they'd run out of excuses, and they wouldn't give us permission because they wouldn't sign the paperwork off. They was into a dead end, but they just wouldn't do the work. So I rang them one day and I said, is there anything illegal about spraying the car park red, white and blue? And they go, you wouldn't. And they go, I fucking will. Because you've been hanging about so long that I've come to the end of my tether, and that's it. Today I'm going to spray the car park red, white and blue, and there's going to be a helicopter over with a film crew in, and it's going to be on the news tonight. And they go, no, don't do it. And I go, I need an answer, yes or no. And you can't say no, because we've been through we've jumped through all the hoops. Anyway, they said yes that afternoon. So we knocked the back down, rebuilt the back, and we knocked the front down, rebuilt the front. And we had 35 weeks of working in the building site, and we sold $1 million. It was the first year when we sold £1 million worth of prams from a building site. Not many people. Oh, and we closed early one day at 4 o'clock because they had to put the new electric cables in. So in that 35 weeks. So, ADHD as well as dyslexia. Then it suddenly started to make sense. Because why? I asked myself, why was we successful? What had happened in our life to go from where we was to where we were then? And then I realised that not only the dyslexia, because it made me, it was easy for me because I couldn't do things, so I employed people. So I wasn't afraid to employ people because I couldn't do all the work that I needed. And of course, the more people I employed, the more work I had to get. And now my ADHD was, I can't stop still, I've got to be on the crest of the wave, looking for the next pram, looking for the next house, looking for the next building site, looking for the next thing, what was going to happen. And so I realised those two things tied together was a big reason for why we were successful. Right, have you ever been to a bank night safe? Does anybody know what? Yeah. So this is a big drawer that you put your key in, and you pull your drawer out, don't you? And it goes bang. And then you push it back and go bang, because you open it to see if there's anything stuck inside from the last customer, and you close it to make sure that if there is down there, you've shot it through. So bang, 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 bang. Right. And we could only take £5,000 in one of these wallets, what you push in this drawer, £5,000. So one person was for insurance reasons could only take £10,000. So we started off with £5,000. Bang, 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 bang. That was it. Then 10. 8 lots of bangs, and then 2 of us used to go with 20,000. 3 of us used to go with 30,000. And then I used to hear these bangs, and you could hear it all the way down the street, especially when it was winter and it was snowing and everything was quiet. And it was what the hell was going on? 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, listening to that. So I stood there one night and I counted the bangs, and I thought, we have another 4 bangs next week. 4 bangs would have been an extra 5,000. I'm going to do my best to sell £5,000 worth more next week, just so I can hear those bangs. And this was like a goal within a goal. You can get motivated through anything in life, even listening to that night safe banging. Anyway, it worked. It did work. Whatever you put in your mind, it works. Because we ended up with 8 people. That's £80,000 going to the bank each week, right? 2 of them we'd have 3 cars. 2 of them would get out with pickaxe handles, because £80,000 in those days is a lot of money to be nicked. So there'd be 2 with pickaxe handles, all the rest put them in, and I'd be looking round. And Marilyn said it's too dangerous. Because things, you can see people eyeing you up. It's too dangerous. So the next day, she hired Securicor, which I was always against, because why pay some Securicor 3 times a week when you could do it yourself? Anyway, she hired Securicor, and that was that. She wouldn't put the staff at risk anymore. She said, and at the same time, because I had a part-time job, I was a debt collector. But it never interfered with the daytime job, because I did it at night. And I'd been doing it for a long time, and I fell into that, being a builder, being a landlord, being, whatever. And we was the biggest landlord in Peterborough in the early 90s of private rented accommodation. So it needed somebody who was focused. And she said, and you can also pack that up now, because it's not conducive with having one of the biggest nursery shops, in the district. It doesn't bode right. So, and the law was changing on how you collect money and things like that. So it was the right time. So reluctantly, I had to give that job up, because did I want a wife, or did I want a happy wife? And I give that job up. So, Dad's dead. Every business needs to play this game. Every business that's growing. If you've got a growing business and you've been in it a few years and you've got a few staff, probably you've got people who are in your family in it, and what have you. So, by now we are 35 people working for us, and what happens if you die? So you play this game. Dad's dead. Is the business open or closed? A lot of people say, well, closed for the funeral. Other people say, fuck that. We're still open. And that's it. I'd like the shop to be open if I died. Not a lot of people crying. Well, I don't think they cry, but the thing is, it's more important than just the funeral. Try it. Dad's dead. What do we do now? Do we have a mortgage? Well, I don't know. Dad looked after that. Do we have any other borrowings? I don't know. Dad looked after that. What about the stock? Who buys it? Well, Dad buys the stock. What about where are we in the building game? Who orders the bricks? Well, I don't know. Does Dad? Don't know. Dad's not here. Dad's dead. That is one of the most important things when you're growing a business, to know what succession you're going to have, and also know what's going to happen if somebody dies. So in every aspect, Have you ever met the bank manager? No, Dad deals with it. You know, and all that kind of stuff. So it's well worth playing. And you should play it once a year. It takes a couple of hours. These, by 1995, were some of the investments we'd got. The Crown Fish Bar, hairdresser, estate agent, dog parlour, and Euroclean and Canton City. You know, they were a few places that we owned. We'd started on the commercial property we had by then. There's rewards. So you work your bollocks off and you expect some rewards. So, you know, and it gets to a point of complacency. So you work, and you think, why am I doing it? And then you see the shiny red car, and you see the, you know, things like that, and it gets hold of you, because complacency. I had a nice Bentley, and then a turbo Bentley come along. It's exactly the same in red, but it was, I think it was a different grille and a different seat, so I had two. You know, and it's like, what's going to get me out of bed? I know, I'll have a 911 Porsche, and it gets you out of bed because you've been you work so hard for so long, and now things are coming in, things are rolling, and it's easy, and complacency gets in, and you start having the toys. But you know, there's only short-term things. Right. This was in Tenerife in 1997. Creative thinking time. Everywhere we went, every holiday we had, the business grew. While we was away, we thought about it. How do we grow the business? How can we make it better? How can we get more customers in? How can we service those customers? How can? And we was there, took all the family, and we was brainstorming. Once you've said, oh, it's a nice day, what else do you say to your spouse and to your children? You talk about business, a growing business, because by then we had, I was getting on for about 50 or 60 people working, you know, in the shop. And it was like, what do we do? And then I said, you know this thing called the internet? There's some new thing called the internet. And they sell stuff, they sell books. Why not sell prams? And we go, yeah, that would never work. So I said to my son-in-law, who was married to my daughter, obviously, my son-in-law, and he worked in London, and he'd always got a computer, so he's like, you know about computers, let's have a site and sell prams by post. So he said, yeah, nothing happened for a few months. And then this boy came in this shop. I was unloading lorries all the time, unloading 40-foot lorries, and I was so exhausted I hadn't got time to break down the cardboard and to put it in the skip. I needed somebody to do that. All the rest of the staff were busy serving and doing whatever the staff do, you know. And this boy came. And anyway, he went in to have the interview, and he went out and he went by me. So I opened the door, I said, when's he start? They go, he's not. I said, why? Why is he not start? Well, he didn't ask any questions. What do you mean? Well, he didn't talk, he didn't ask any questions. I go, I don't want him to ask fucking questions, I want him to rip up cardboard. I want him to jump on cardboard boxes and flatten them and put them in the skip. Ring him, get him to start tomorrow. Well, he started tomorrow, and he worked with me, and he ripped these, and he broke the cardboard boxes down, and he filled the skip every day. And then at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he would go to the girls' desk. They all had computers, they didn't know what they was doing with it. And they used to, he got the rubbish at 4 o'clock, and he put it in the bin. And one of the girls said one day, oh, my computer's gone wrong. And he looked over her shoulder, not in a bad way, but in a nice way, and he looked over his shoulder at the computer, and he goes, oh, and everybody goes, how'd you do that, Barry? And he goes, oh, it's my hobby. I said, you know about computers? He says, yeah. I said, you put the baskets down, Barry. I said, you're now our IT manager, and this is how we got people, this is how we grew the business. You're our IT manager. He says, yeah, all right, I'll just take the bins and then I'll come back. So a week later, he was at the desk. I was sat on his desk. I said, Barry, there's this thing called the internet. My passion, I would love to make an internet. Do you know anything about it? And he goes, oh yeah, okay. I made one. I made an internet. I made a website. And you what? I made a website. I said, Christmas has come again. Anyway, with my son-in-law, and he could do so much, and he could understand what we wanted. There's my wife and daughters. We knew what the shop floor needed, what we needed to put on the website. My son-in-law knew how to put it all into a program, to a build program, and Barry built it. And we're rapidly going. That's the first. 3 years in the making, and the website went live, Christmas Day, 1999. And guess what? Barry, who built it, that was in 1998, 1999, is still here. He's just there. Behind the camera. Give him a round of applause. I think he really deserves it. Thanks, Barry. I really, really appreciate everything you've done and still doing. Now let's just go back to those vans. You know, when you're growing, we used to have this. I used to drive about, when I had 3 shops, at night, delivering the goods after I took them in the shop in the day. Then we got a warehouse, and what did we get? We got a bigger van. Then we got another warehouse, and we got a bigger van. And you know when you're growing, because you get bigger vans. You get bigger warehouses, and then the 40-foot trucks. And then when we finished, as we was finishing in 2011, we used to have 16 40-foot trucks going out, full of goods every day. Double-deckers. They made the double-deckers for kiddie care. That's the first people that I think it's Interlink or somebody, whoever we had, made double-deckers for us. And so we had 16 coming in, 16 going out. Yeah, so there's the website. Marvel Properties was still going. It's still going after 48 years. Marvel Properties, which was I didn't have a name for the window cleaning business, and then we called it Right Way Painting and Decorating when we got a bit bigger, and then we called it Marvel Properties when we started investing in property. So that's an interesting one. That cost 3 million quid a few years ago, quite a few years ago, 10, 15 years ago, probably longer, 20 years ago. Cost 3 million. I only had 250 cash. Now you want to leverage everything you can. I had 250,000 cash. I went to the bank and said, do you want 2,750,000? He said, no, we've just looked at it, I'll give you 2 million. So I've got to get 750. The house that we owned for 26 years, that was now worth 2 million some odd by then, and I remortgaged it for 750,000. Now I've got the million. Now I can get the 2 million. Now we've got Hot Point in on a monthly basis. They wouldn't take a lease. Kept telling them to take a lease. No, we'll use it. We'll put the fridge freezers in there and the washing machines on a monthly basis. And 18 months later, the rent had paid for the interest on 250,000, 750,000 for the mortgage, and the 2 million. Then it paid the interest, and it'd give us a £200,000 profit. And somebody had a fire, and the next day, it was Marks and Spencer's, and the next day they rang me and they said that those 2 buildings you got, have they got a lease? I said, they're a monthly lease. I said, they can be out in a month. They said, we'll give you 4.5 million. I made a 1.5 million in that 18 months, plus all the expenses, plus another 200,000 profit. And then 3 years later, we bought it back cheaper, rented it for 10 years to Marks and Spencer's. I got 4.5 million in rent, and then we sold it for 5.5 million. I'm expecting to come back on the market soon. So might buy it for the third time. This one, 2002, the really, really nice building we built for kiddie care. Marilyn had her office there. When they was designing the office, they said, where's your desk going to be? And I said, I don't want one. You know, we've been in business for so long, and what I preferred doing is, I said, I'll come in for a meeting, you know, they've got black leather sofas in there and things. I said, I don't mind having a cup of tea in here, but I'm not having a desk. I am not a desk person. I'm a fork truck driver. I'm a maintenance person. I am, you know, that's what I do. That's what I love. And I could do what I loved. And that is physical work. But that was going to be for the rest of our lives. That was going to take us forever. And it was a wonderful building, but it became too small. That's about 65 people who worked in there. And you learn so much about business from those people. The majority were super people, and we're still in touch with them now. Royal Bank of Scotland. I remember in 2005, if you had a heartbeat, you was good enough to take a loan. And if you didn't have a heartbeat, you were still good enough to take a loan. They would give money to corpses, they would. So Royal Bank of Scotland offered us on the 2 business 36 million overdraft to do whatever we liked with less than 1%. And I said to her, everything's too expensive. You know, if I've got to employ people to go out and buy stuff, but there's nothing to buy, nothing that I thought was worth it. So I think we took about 6.5 million of it, and then we took another couple of million. But banks are, you have to be wary of banks, because when the sun's shining, they'll give you an umbrella. And when it rains, they'll want to take it back. And that's what happened in the recession, and I said, no, fuck off. You're not taking it back, because they would have made us bankrupt if they took that back. I paid every month, every penny I owed, and they still come, and they said, if you look at clause number 986, subsection 894, or whatever of this, you'll see I can take it back. And I'll go to the lawyers. They said, and they go, oh, you could read it both ways. I went to the accountant, and they could read it both ways. But we didn't see it, because we didn't expect it. So I said, take us to court, and they never did. They went after easier people, bankrupting easier people. They did. So, all through our lives, we've had the keep it simple, stupid. It says stupid. I used to say that because I was used to saying it. Everybody else said it, so why not me? So we had systems for everything. When you have a business, you make a system for every single thing that you do. And the sooner you do it, the better, because you've only got to put it in bite sizes. If you wait 20 years like we did, you've got a hell of a job too. But systems. The systems was in my head all the time. But systems are vital. The systems are vital when you come to sell. If you want to capitalise on your business after 10, 20 years, like some of them, you know, we've only had business a year and we've sold it, 2 years and sold it, and we're selling businesses on a regular basis. So some of it, most are like 7 years, and if you haven't got systems, nobody will want to buy it. A business shouldn't rely on yourself, although it does, but it shouldn't be shown to be relying on you. Systems should be relying on systems. Right, so we went from that shop with 60,000 square foot with 65 people, and just by coincidence, well, not coincidence, but I bought 6 acres of land somewhere else. We're going to build 2 sheds, one for nephew and son, and one for the HMRC for dark warehouses. And my girls saw the plans on my desk. Yeah, well, I never had a desk over, but it was on somebody's desk they were. But and said, Dad, what's that? I said, well, I'm building. And they go, why can you not build us a new shop? I said, you just had one. You know, it was 2002 when we built the other one. We've only been here 5 years, but we're creaking at the seams. And we'd added another 40,000 square foot onto that, so we'd have got about 105,000 square foot altogether. So this one, I said, yeah, I thought about it long and hard. When they said, Dad, would you build us like the biggest in the country? I said, let me think about it, yes. Rang the estate agent and said, can you tell those 2 tenants that we're not building those anymore? So it's just like that. That's another thing. We make decisions with our gut feeling and fast. We don't procrastinate. We don't. So all of my life is keep it simple, don't procrastinate it, and don't say I should have. So that store is like 260,000 square foot all in all. Can you see how big it is? The 3 floors high at the front and 4 floors high at the back, and where it changes colour, then there's 12-metre double racking. The fork trucks were 50 grand each in those days, and we could have any colour we wanted. So my daughter, who's the fork truck trainer, she was, decided pink and blue for fork trucks. And then we didn't walk from one end to the other. What you did, you got on a little fork truck and you went along on that. So time and motion was in our minds. So this is the inside of it, unbelievable. 2008. I don't know whether anybody remembers 2008. It was like you're going along in an express train at 100 miles an hour and you smash into a brick wall. And it was just like that. One day we was living the dream. We was all over the world. We had 120 staff full-time then, and it was a dream come true. It was the biggest recession hit. It was a living hell. What could we do? We could either run, take my £3 million in pension and run. That means there's 120 people, well 125 in the end, 125 people would lose their jobs. We was losing 250,000 a month, and we should have been earning 250,000 a month, so there's a big gap there. I survived for months on alcohol and anything else, but not real food. And then the local authority decides to take us to court for not filling in a form for recycling cardboard. And I said, why? I said, you know, if we owe you some money or whatever. And they said, no, you should have filled the form in. Never heard of the form. Nobody, none of our suppliers, 150 suppliers, never heard of the form. Our lawyers didn't. Nobody had heard of this form. And they was taking us to court. We're going to make an example of you because not many people fill the form in. We're going to make an example of you. Now, what does that do to somebody like Marilyn, who's run that business for all those years, you know, with looking after all those staff and doing everything for them, and now she's going to be taken to court. She said, I can't do it. She'd rather kill herself. This is how dreadful the system is. So there was 5 of us. There was my wife, myself, and then there was 3 directors, my 2 children and my son-in-law, who was all being taken to court. So anyway, my wife wouldn't do it. She'd rather die. She'd, you know, it's like, because it's so bad. And this went on for a year, this did. And I had to have 2 full-time people. I had to employ 2 full-time people to go over the years and years of the cardboard recycling. Luckily, we used to send a 40-foot over to the recycling centre, and it was my mate who actually got the cardboard, and he had all the PIMs or whatever they're called. He had them all, every single one he had, to prove that we did it properly. We wasn't burning it, and we wasn't, doing anything untoward. And when I went into we was going to represent ourselves, but the night before I went to somebody's house and he said, "Don't represent yourself. You need a barrister." So we phoned a barrister in London who came down that day to go to court, and I got a solicitor as well. And they said, "We don't want 5 of you." Well, Marilyn was in bed ill. "We don't want 5 of you in court. We'll take 1." So my daughter went, and we was in the dock. She was in the dock, and we was in the audience. And I started having a nervous breakdown because we'd not done a thing wrong in our lives. And there was a coffee place, and we met the barrister and their barrister, and there was a girl there, and I said, "What do you do?" And she says, "Oh, it's me." She's about 18 years old. She said, "Oh, I've sorted this out." I said, "What do you mean sorted?" She says, "Well, I went and buy that big building and thought, oh, that's a big building, and that's a new building. I wonder if they've filled the forms in for recycling." I said, "You've done that?" I said, do you realise what you've done? That you could bankrupt a company, you could actually have people kill themselves for this." And she said, "Well, we need to get the revenue in." I said, "I offered you, the first day, I offered you anything," and they said, "We owe 29,900 and some odd pound." I said, "I'll pay it, and he said, "No, we don't want paying, we want to make an example, and then you can pay it, and then everybody else knows." And they got into court, and there was a fine of 10,000 for not filling the form in, which nobody knew about, 10,000 for not sending it, and 10,000 for something else. It was £30,000 fine. I thought I was going to get 60,000. So we went through this. We went through the scenario. I've recycled since 1974. And the guy who was our solicitor, our barrister, was really, really good. And there was 3 of them, 3 judges, and they said, "Well, I don't think you're guilty, but you are. The paperwork says you are, but you're not. But you are." And anyway, they had a recess for 40 minutes, and the court was just there. Thousands of people there, and they had this recess, and they come out and they go, "This very hard case, we don't feel you're guilty, but of course we've got to uphold the law because the law says you are. So we're going to give you a £2,000 fine for not filling, £2,000 fine for not sending in, £2,000 fine for £6,000." And the guy stands up and says, "Yeah, there's 29,900 and..." "Oh no, we just found them guilty." Now you could have took that and not brought them to court, but now you brought them to court, that's it. They don't have to pay it. And I thought, what a weird system. So we ended up with all that, a year of problems, a year of nightmare, and we paid £6,000, and 1,500 cost, 7,500. And I offered them like 30 grand the first day. So that was a fucking nightmare. It was living hell. It was. Anyway, we, in that same time as we was doing that, we was remodeling the business to make a profit, and we did, and we remodeled the business, and happy days again, living the dream, but we'd had enough. And so therefore we put it up for sale. Basically, we put it for sale, yeah. And Morrison's bought it. Ka-ching, 70 million. So that's the hell of it. And what did we do afterwards? We did what we always did. We built houses, but better ones, nicer ones. So we started a new building company, which was 3rd of February 2011, and then we got 70 million in 14th of February 2011. We started the building company. We put 9 million quid into that, and then we built 6 100 properties, and I sold that in 2017. So lovely. And then 2012 we built that. This is in Peterborough. 350 people work there, or should work there, but they don't. But they pay the rent. They just took a new 10-year lease, and yeah. So things like that. Alder Marina acquired. We was the first company in Peterborough to start buying offices and turning them into residential. Then we've got a little company that renovates old buildings, and that's our office in the middle of Stamford, and that hadn't been used for 100 years. It was all overgrown. We said to the owners, what are you going to do with the building? They said, we're going to put it into 3 apartments. Okay, and how much will you get a profit? And he told us, and we said, well, we'll give you that. Don't touch it, we'll give you the profit. And we buy, and they go, oh, that's a good idea. You know, you're serious. We know we don't have to do any work, and you're going to give us what profit we're going to make it. Yeah. And then they put it up £50,000 when it went into the solicitor's hands. Then they put it up another £50,000 because they had second thoughts, prices were going up. And we said, yeah, that's it. We'll buy it, but that's it. You've got to sign. And then when we got it, it was all overgrown. I mean, it was there was no floors. The floors were rotten, and it was like, and then there was a barn there that we didn't realise it was all overgrown. We made it into a 2-bedroom house. There's 8 parking spaces, which are worth 60 grand each in Stamford. And then behind there, when we took all the undergrowth, you know, the overgrowth, or whatever you call it, we realised there was another house at the back. So, and then we didn't want the bottom, so we let that to an estate agent. So all of a sudden we're getting about 40 grand in income from it, all because my son-in-law, this is a different son-in-law, but all because my son-in-law, who's in our building trade, said, wouldn't it be nice to be able to run in from Easton-on-the-Hill or biking to work instead of coming to Peterborough, and it looks over the river and the meadows. You know, you do things for different things, different reasons, but that was it. And then 2016, I thought I better launch my book. I've been writing it for 4 years, in between 10:30 at night and 3:20 in the morning. And if I left it more than 3:20, the birds would wait. You know, the birds would be there, and I'd never go to bed. But I needed to tell the story, and it should make you laugh. And it should make you cry, and if you don't, I'll give you money back. And it should make you money. It was written to motivate, inspire, and help other entrepreneurs exceed in business, and to show. Oh, you can read that bit at the bottom because I'm not going to, because it's I start crying. Yeah. Anyway, how long does a building last? Well, we built that in 2000, and then we knocked it down in 2017, and we used the rubble for somewhere else because we'd sold to Lidl. Same square footage, beautiful building, and they moved it. They didn't move it, they knocked it down, and they put us exact same size 3 or 4 metres away. That, you know, when you've got money to burn, or you don't know what to do with it, you know, a normal person wouldn't do that, but Lidl do. And then we built these apartments, and we've kept those there in Hampton, and then we went on to building Starbucks. We built this in Hampton for Sop and Sop Insurance, a different Handelsbanken and different people like that. So that's the kind of tenant that we're aiming for now. And then this, oh God, this one. Opportunities. Somebody asked me today about there's a recession coming. Is it all doom and gloom? And no, it's not doom and gloom, because in the middle of the recession, last time I bought this. It was £11 million, but I weren't going to pay £11 million. I'd got to borrow the money, so it went down and down and down. It's 135,000 square foot. It's a brand new building. It was. and he was advertising it £8 square foot. Couldn't get any tenants, and I offered him 7. And at the same time, somebody offered him 7.5, so they told me to fuck off. So, you know, I did. And then this was just before Christmas, this was a few years ago, and then they come back after Christmas and said they fell out of bed with us, you know, would you give us a 7? I said, you told me to fuck off. And they go, well, would you give us a 7? I go, no, because the prices are dropping by the week, they were. How much would you give us? I said, it's too embarrassing. I'm not going to embarrass you or myself because you'll tell me to fuck off again. And they said, no, we won't. So we bid 4.5 million. And they said, I'll think about it. they said, I'll think about it. Would you go to 5? I said, fuck off. And it's like, no, I won't, because next week it'll probably be worth 3.5. And they said, okay, we'll do 4.5, but we've got 50 people, 50 names that we've already approached, and they didn't want it. But so if you rent it to one of those 50, you give us 5 million. I said, that's fine. And we found somebody else within a couple of weeks. I charged them £2.85 a foot, and we're still making 7.5%. So I charged them £2.85 a foot. They went in, and that was for the first years to rent. And the second year was like £3 something, and the third year was £4. So they're greedy, asking for £8. So just remember, if you see something as an opportunity and you can borrow the money and it works out because you can give a low rent, then you know it works out. And then we sold that. We got, again, probably we got the 4.5 million back in rent, and then we sold it for 9.75 million. We did. So the opportunities are about. These are some places that we recently, 2020, time flies, doesn't it? Recently purchased. So farm, a mushroom factory, and different places. So we're always looking for building sites. That one's a 12-acre site. This one, I think we bought about 14 acres. And this is the construction we're doing at the moment. We've got about £85 million worth of construction, under construction, or just about to start. We've got £27 million about to start, and I think about 8 million. Different ones. Anyway, it's 85 million. So they're the kind of buildings we're doing now. And I thank you very much for listening, because I've waffled on far too long, and that's the life and times of Neville Wright. Is there any questions? And there's some water. Yeah. Is there anybody got any questions?
I remember you did a talk a while ago, Neville. It was at Peterborough United, and before you spoke, Chris was talking about business plans, and then you followed him up. I don't think you heard what he was talking about.
I regret that, because I should have said, right, okay, the question was, do you have a business plan? No, or something like that. Yeah. Do you feed a business plan to the bank?
Yeah, that's
right. Okay, so I said I'd never wrote a business plan in my life. See, I've got a good memory, and it's because I made a mistake and I couldn't rectify it, because I should have brought Chris on and said, Chris, what the fuck do you mean? Because I don't understand. You know, the girl who asked the question, Chris had been on and obviously said, you need a business plan. And then the girl said, do you believe in business plans, or something like that? And I said, I've never done a business plan in my life, which was true. But that didn't mean that you're not supposed to have a business plan. That doesn't mean that I didn't get other people to do business plans. I thought she meant me as a dyslexic, you know, and I'm one of the world's best planners. And then I thought, oh fuck, didn't I? I said, oh fuck, you know, Chris had made this speech, and I didn't hear what he said, and he was obviously, you've got to have a plan, you've got to have a plan, you've got to have a plan. That's what I imagined he's saying, and I'm going, no football plans. No, it was, anyway, so your question.
Yeah, so with...
Sorry about that.
That's fine. Kiddie care, the development of that and the growth of that,
Yeah.
did you formulate a plan yearly, or was it a big broad thing? But how did that pan out, or did it just happen?
It happened. The plans we had was for this building, whatever we got at the time. And then the plan changed because we packed the building with people. People used to come in and say, hey, Nev, you're busy today, aren't you? And I used to go, because I used to be on the shop floor, I used to go, especially Saturdays, and I would look and go, no. And they go, what are you looking at? I go, well, I can see carpet. When we're busy, you can only see shoes. And that's how it was. Because on a Saturday, there'd be probably 15 salespeople, and you'd all have a clipboard with about 100 guarantees on it, and you'd stand there and you chose your products that you wanted to demo, and then you demo them with about 6 or 8 people around and give the guarantees out, and then the next lot, and the next lot, and the next lot, and they'd go over, they'd go over, if I'd sold a cot, they'd go over to the high chair salesperson, then they'd go over to the pushchair person and the car seat person, and you used to stand there because it was rammed, and you couldn't move. So it's, but it was formulated in the way of this building at this time, and what was going on, and it was like on the crest of a wave, and it was always looking for the new opportunity. And when I didn't take the opportunity, I had the opportunity to buy a new building for £196,000 at an opportunity, and I couldn't afford it. Cash, and I didn't go and get a mortgage on it, and I wasn't confident, but I bought that building about 4 years later at £600,000. So, I should have. Yeah, so it is good feeling and what we wanted to do, and we was driven by customers' needs. So, if you think there's a plan, well, it just kind of flowed. If the customer needed it, we would do it. And also when I showed you the staff like Barry, who come to do the cardboard and then all of a sudden could do a website. The guys like there was another Barry, wasn't there? Yeah, Barry Security. Barry Security. He came. We called him that because we called all people different names. Well, you get away with it now. Gadget. What do you get away with Gadget? I don't know. Security. Anyway, so he came for a warehouse man, and he caught a thief. And go, that well done, Barry. He caught a thief, and he goes, oh, it's just normal. He says, I worked in London on Tottenham Court Road. And, that's what I did. I said, you're head of security, and then we ended up with 3 security people. And this is how it developed. And in the early stages, one of the girls walked through. She was on a till, walked through for a cup of tea, and the phone was going. I was on another phone, and she said, good afternoon, Kiddie Care, how can I help you? All right, it was, nobody liked answering the phones in the 70s. And go, you can answer a phone, you're not scared of it, like a lot of people were. And she said, oh no. I said, what are you doing here? She said, well, I've had a baby, I worked in a solicitor's office, but now can't work there anymore, that's what I come here. I said, you're not going back on the till, you're now my secretary. And it's like, that's the way it developed. And I could tell you 50 instances where we developed the company just because this person was good at this or like that, and they fitted into that job. So, yeah, that was our system. But I'm sorry about that other, because I've kicked myself for a long time thinking I could have answered that question better.
Neville, I do have one more if that might.
Go on then.
So with Kiddie Care, you were selling a product, and now with the building, you are selling a product at the end of it,
yeah.
But it is more construction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Out of the two different business models, which did you or do you prefer being
Well,
in?
I preferred people. I preferred just the buzz. It was theatre of selling in the nursery business, and it was really, really nice, and it was good. I preferred that, but it would be a shit situation now, wouldn't it? You know, in the last few years, I would be selling 4 pints of milk at £100, Mars bars at £200, and then you pay for your Mars bars £200, and then you go and choose anything in the shop with a price tag at £200. You see, because I'm a rebel, and that's the way I do business. They couldn't close me down, and that would have been a fight, and I wouldn't have liked it. So, and it's very hard in retail at the moment. It is. So, you know, we did all right. And I loved the 34 years I was in it, and the same goes for everybody else who is in it. Yeah, but it's a different thing. Construction is a different thing. It's not as people friendly, and it's not as nice, I don't think. And you only see that person once. They don't come in the door week after week with the mother-in-law and the father-in-law and the brother and sister and all the kids, and you know. I miss those people, I miss the chats. Yeah. So, horses for courses, whatever you like, whatever, that's the thing. Any more questions?